those of you that I think there's going to be quite a few new members on here, so certainly welcome to the club. Welcome to your first Zoom meeting, if it is that for you. And you can see on here, for those that don't know, in the past we've used a webinar feature, and there was a bit of an error in the first email that we sent out to you. We may go back to that eventually, but quite a few people requested to go with the regular webinar. So if they raise their hands and whatnot, and JP Moati's already raised his hand, so we'll go to him in a minute. But we wanted to be able to have you ask questions of myself or Kent right off the bat. If your video's on, see you talking, and put a little bit more social aspect to this. So let me just scroll down here. There we go. So as it says here, please raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature on your screen there if you want to ask a question. So before we even jump in, let's see what everybody has to say here. What do we got here? Okay. So Mike, just for a sec, look for JP Moati and unmute him. Just see if he raised his hand right off the bat.
Yeah, I think he might have put it down because I can't find it anymore.
Okay, don't worry about it then. All right, so we're going to jump right into it because we don't want to keep Kent waiting too long. So as I do pretty well every meeting, this is a bit of an idea of club growth and what's going on with the club. Right now, we're actually slightly over 1,100. When this was prepared, we're 1,098 members. So we keep on growing, as you can see. Almost 40 since last month, and it's been consistently like 40 or 50 new members every month. So the club is really growing, and I think it's an indication of growth within just the Tesla deliveries, but also the efforts that our social media team has been doing to create awareness in the club. So you can see Twitter's up, whatever that is, 120 some odd people. Facebook, it's an official Facebook group, and many people almost every day, and also Instagram. And we put in a lot of posts in those three areas. And when we get new members, a lot of times they say they heard about us from social media. But frankly, we're all getting new members to say that they saw us from our name on a trash bin at the Tesla facility, or from Tesla themselves, or through one of our sponsors. Or frankly, I've seen a few people who said they just did a Google search and found us. So really good growth, and hopefully we can continue to serve the community as we grow. Hopefully many of you are aware, and if you're not, we met Sandy Munro from the YouTube channel Munro Live, and I would highly recommend that you look at that channel, Munro Live. Sandy Munro is actually a Canadian, but now works out of Detroit area, and he's been in the automotive business for decades and decades, and spends a lot of time lately tearing down vehicles and analyzing them, and is a big fan of Tesla, and has actually torn down many, many Teslas. So what I mean by that is they drive the car first, then they analyze it from the outside, how it's put together, and sort of give their opinion of how the interior and the exterior looks and its fit and finish. And then they literally pull the car apart, explode it apart, and analyze all the parts. So Sandy they crowdfunded a Model S Plaid vehicle. Believe it or not, the community paid for that vehicle for them, and they toured it across up the eastern seaboard, and up into Quebec and into Ontario here. And we met up with him for an hour or two when he stopped here in Toronto. And so I highly recommend we put that in on our website with a brief video of the meetup with Sandy. And I think it was also, the link was created in the newsletter as well. And I've actually been speaking to Corey, who also is in the YouTube channel and was here with him, but he's put me on to Sandy's personal secretary. And they have committed that Sandy will come on and do one of our Zoom meetings with us. We're not sure if it'll be February, March. It might even have to be as late as April, just depending on his schedule, because he's a pretty darn busy guy. But check out his YouTube channel, lots of interesting stuff. And by the time we speak to him, he'll probably have started to be well into the Plaid teardown. So watch for that. Thought we'd also throw this out. We had an article in our newsletter. One of the gals wrote about this. It's kind of cool. Don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at this, but you've all got a light show on your new Teslas with the update that was originally on the Model X and now been ramped out to all the other models. Slightly different. Some of them, the doors and the hatches open, other ones they don't. But if you haven't checked it out, certainly do that. But this was also in the newsletter. This is only one of our quite a few sites that have popped up where people are going into the fact that Tesla now lets you create your own light show for a certain length of time to control all your doors, your windows, the the music that you decide you want to upload, and create your own custom show. And many people are now sharing that, and there's some instructions. You can just delete the one you have in yours and put it into it, or take it out of your USB and put this one in. And there's some pretty cool ones. And there's also people on social media where they're doing 10, 20, 50, 100 tests all at the same time with these light shows. So lots of people having fun with that. So we thought we'd mention that to you. Want to mention the holiday fundraiser. We just concluded that at the end of December. This is our second go around with the Feed Ontario. And as a reminder, Feed Ontario basically is an agency that works and manages pretty well all the food banks in Ontario. And we decided to do some fundraising with them. We raised $15,700. So I want to thank everybody that contributed. I don't want to sound sort of negative at all, but I will say that internally we were a little bit disappointed the number of members that donated. Very low number of individual members. A lot of the donations came from sponsors or large donations, or from people that set up their own little groups so they could reach out to their own circle of friends, family, and employees. And true club members, or was as many as you'd like. I'd be curious to know feedback from you. We are going to try to send a survey out in the next couple months, just overall. We did that 2 years ago. But if anybody wants to give me some individual feedback as to whether you think this fundraiser was worthwhile, or your feedback on, maybe why we didn't hit the target this year. We did over $21,000 last year, but we'd be interested to know that because we plan on continuing to support some of these different charities like we did with this last year, and also with Tree Canada. But again, thanks very much. And I think it's a very worthy cause, and they're very happy to get that donation from us. Again, another reminder, I've had 2 or 3 emails from people saying if they can't make a meeting, do we record it? And yes, every meeting is being recorded, including this one. It sometimes takes a week or 2 to get the recording up into the site, because one of the club executives volunteers and he edits the video a little bit, so you don't see any of the boo-boos, or try to cut down some of the dead space or that kind of thing. But they are within the member zone, and you'll see it'll look like just like this. And for at least the last year or more, we've recorded all our Zoom meetings, and they're in the member zone. So have a look at that. Also wanted to remind you, I've done this the last couple of times, but the online shop is still up there. We aren't getting as much usage as we would like, maybe, but I'm not sure if it's shipping costs or selection. But again, be looking to some feedback. These are 2 new items. We put a toque in there. I think it's available in a couple of colors, and these t-shirts, but have a look at that. And I'll just remind you all that because this is sort of the orders are placed on demand as they come through, and then held and shipped all at once, it can take a month or more, depending on when you ordered this, to get it physically out to you. But we've now asked them to update everybody through, I don't think there was proper emails coming out to acknowledge your order, and maybe an update when it was shipped and that kind of thing. So hopefully that's changed. So we'll watch for that. Just gonna have a quick look. JP Muadi, the jacket, the jacket is there. The jacket that we have is, what's it called, guys? Can you remember? It's a fleece jacket, comes in black or red, and that is there. So unless it was back ordered, we were trying to get an actual sort of winter jacket, and we've had some supply chain issues getting a half decent quality winter jacket. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that up in time. We may have to just go to a spring nylon jacket. And now that we know that things take longer than normal, we'll try to keep our eye on that. Again, I like to pause now because quite often I used to forget because I leave it till the end, but to thank all our sponsors that help us support the club. And you can see we have quite a varied list of sponsors here, from shaving companies to financial advisors, a couple of different firms that sell vehicles and service vehicles, body shops, insurance companies, wheels and tires, lots and lots of coverage. And we have a couple more in the wings that we're talking to. And so again, I want to thank them very much. And these all come pretty well highly recommended. And you'll see notes in Facebook when people ask for advice on these types of services on their cars. People are very glad to chime in, and we're getting some great feedback from these people. So again, if you have any input about current or future sponsors, just send me a line. All right. So actually, before we jump into this, we're going to have Kent here. I probably shouldn't have showed that slide, but oh well, live TV is fine. It's okay. There was quite a few questions submitted for Kent, and he's gonna walk us through a bit of a presentation, and I'm gonna then ask some of these questions that you've asked and sort of moderate for a little bit. But I just want to really quickly go through some of the questions that were put through for the club. Some of these things I really can't help you with, but I'll let you know that. Someone has asked about why we're not getting many superchargers. Look like they're starting here in Ontario, and why is BC getting them all? I really can't answer that. I do know that I am in contact with the head of the supercharging team. They're doing their best. There has been some new ones open up. Where were they, Mike? Do you remember? Is it Port Elgin and somewhere else? There's been a couple new ones open up already here in Ontario. The extra one, the second one in Kingston has opened up. They're doing their best. A lot of times it's how fast they can get permitting done, how fast they can get construction going, and they're doing their best. So I really can't understand that. What else?
I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Sure, Ken.
It's because it's close to California, and a lot go skiing up into BC in the winter. A lot of people at Tesla, right? So it's really that simple.
Okay. All right. What else we got here? Someone's asked kind of an interesting question. Why do we open up our meetings to everyone? I think this was Eric. Our objective should be to encourage and educate non-Tesla drivers. Well, we do have some of our functions, like when we did the Leilani Munter spoke to us, that was open to everybody and things like that. But I think the problem is if we open this to anyone, we're going to get a lot of questions that are very, very basic general questions that people are going to ask that don't know anything about a Tesla. And they can find out most of those things all out through the internet on social media. So this is a Tesla Owners Club, and we wanted to keep it to that. So we tailor everything we do to try to meet you as owners. So that was really the thinking behind that. Ken, you might be able to help with this. How much battery loss should be expected overnight when not charging?
Oh, well, that depends on
question.
That depends on the EV. Tesla's, to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with the 3 or the Y, but Tesla's do degrade in the cold. The Toyota RAV4 that was actually made in Woodstock for just the California market, I actually brought one of those up into Canada, and when I did, I guess it really, things went sort of crazy because I guess Toyota corporate contacted every dealer in California and said if another dealer sells a RAV4 electric out of the state, they're going to pull their dealerships. So we ruffled some feathers there. But I wanted to see what a Canadian-made vehicle designed for the California market would actually do in virtually the coldest weather, which is in Western Canada. And the coldest night I came in was -60 with wind chill when I flew in, and it was pretty much that cold for a few days. And I mean, it was raw cold. I think it was about 1 a.m. I came out of the airport and I wasn't plugged in. Ironically, all the pickup trucks and everything else around me were plugged in and they weren't electric. But I wasn't expecting much, and I jumped in and I hit the button and the screen slowly popped up and it said conditioning the battery. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me. I thought this thing would have been dead. And so I, flipped on the seat heat and brushed off the snow, and I came in and in about 5 minutes, it was good to go. So I was really blown away. So it didn't really lose much, but my Tesla's, I tell all EV owners, don't take your EV to the airport unless you can plug in, because it's going to totally ruin your holiday, guaranteed. So
obviously it depends on how long you're gone, and it really boils down to, unless you're stuck, preferably don't leave your vehicle not plugged in, especially in the cold weather. It will degrade. I think it depends on what you've got some of the settings in. If you believe me, if you go and keep on checking all the time to see what the state of the battery is, that is using energy right off the bat by waking the car up. So you don't want to do that, but it does vary by model.
Yeah, I've spent a few $1,000s on tow trucks at airports in the last decade. And they're typically not great experiences. So I've learned not to park where the ceiling is too short, because you can't get a regular tow truck in there, right? So, but yeah, I just highly recommend it, because I've been away, cold snaps, my trips got delayed, flights delayed, whatever, and it's just not really a relaxing trip. So we're just telling the airports, put in level 1, put in something, just allow the EVs to come. But I don't take my EV to the airport anymore. It's just too much too much stress, you know, with everything else in the go. So, but yeah, so Teslas can lose quite a bit over time, and you're right. You know, when you wake it up, but you just want to keep them plugged in, ideally, if you can.
Right. Now, some unusual questions here. What's the best way to contact service? Where I live, mobile app only lists service centers in the US. So they obviously live near the American border. And I don't know if this is the same person that reached out to me by email. It might have been somebody way up north. And I contacted Tesla on their behalf, and they were able to get, Tesla was able to get a mobile technician contact information and send it to them directly. So it's obviously based on GPS or distance or something like that. But I'm going to suggest that most of these questions, I'll quickly try to whip through them, but send me an email directly. And, you know, I'm not going to always know the answer. And when I don't, I will be able to contact somebody at Tesla that will get the answer collectively, or they'll contact you to follow up. So if you can't get a hold of service, or the app's not working correctly for you, send me an email. You know, you can call most of these places, you can email them, but they're not very responsive. And I can sort of cut through that sometimes and get a hold of somebody at Tesla. What else? Someone's asking about the survey. Yes, we are going to do another survey, and we'll try to give you a summary of that. What percentage of club members charge at home? And also what percentage of club members only charge at home? I don't know that answer. Maybe one of the guys, Cornell, can you make a note of that? It's probably something we could put in the survey, mention that to Paul. I'm going to suggest that my gut is 80 to 85% of the people charge only at home. I do know it's harder and harder today as the Tesla fleet grows and people live in a condo or an apartment building or a townhouse, and they don't have charging. And I know somebody personally that only can go to superchargers or third-party chargers. So, but I would suggest that's fairly small. Another question is, does the club have any direct connection to members of the provincial or federal government? We don't have a direct connection, but we do have a very good connection with the policy lead for Tesla Canada, who in turn does have connections with the federal and provincial government. So if you have any specific questions or suggestions, again, get them to me and we'll try to pass them on. Somebody asking about the CCS adapter. Anybody that's used a third-party CCS adapter that I've seen has not really worked very well. It's evident from what we can tell, because now when you look in your car and you look in your, there's a screen that'll tell you basically how your car is equipped. It'll tell you whether it's equipped to handle CCS. So that's coming. It's already in Korea. But again, I have no knowledge of that for time frame, but I'm pretty confident saying that's coming. I mentioned this to you today, Kent. What do we do about the heat pump problems for 3 and Y? I know that's pretty serious problem for some people. I was speaking to somebody the other day who was down in PEI and stuck and had to get his vehicle brought back into Quebec to get it serviced. If you look on the internet, there is some sort of short-term fixes if you don't have the real serious problem where it looks like it's sort of seized or died on you, the heat pump. But Tesla is well aware of this. Even Elon's tweeted that he's aware of it and it's a high priority fix. And I just saw another update come through in my car right now. And I have a Model X, but there's a 0.8 update out there. So they're really working hard to get that fixed. Again, contact service. And if you're having some problems there, just let me know. Another person had somebody sell them their Tesla, a friend of theirs. If the battery degrades to less than 70% over the warranty period, Tesla will replace it. Not sure about that. I think there is a battery powertrain warranty. You might want to check into that. It's got to be on the Tesla site. But again, send me an email. He's saying that he had to pay $350 for an analysis or something. But send me an email personally, and I'll get the answer from you right from Tesla. Tips and tricks for window icing and door handle icing. Depends on the vehicle. Simply, most of them you can bang on the door and the handle will pop out. It's a little bit tougher, like in a Model S, where it's that electronic door, but that does work. Some people spray the door handles with WD-40 or something, or put special stuff around the seals so that the doors don't freeze at the window seals. But I can say I haven't had many problems because my car is almost always inside. All this is on the internet, though. If you just type it in, you'll get directly to one of the forums. Tesla Owners Online. TeslaMotorClub.com, which is an original forum. They've all got these answers, even in our own Facebook group. People who will be able to give you firsthand experience on how to handle that. And sort of the last one is someone's asking about Powerwall and solar. They do not have a department created here in Canada yet, but I just saw on Twitter tonight that someone asked Elon about that, and he said later this year. So that was right from the word of the mouth of the Grand Poobah. What else? Sorry. Again, I don't know if there's anybody knows it. Is there a way to preheat the battery if going to a destination charger without turning on the cabin heat? I don't believe so. I mean, when you, I think if you have your cabin heat reduced to as low as you want, but as long as you put the supercharger in as your destination, the car will condition the battery to accept that. But it only does it for a supercharger, not a destination charger or a third-party charger. Would you alter your recommendations for someone who has lifetime free supercharging? Well, lifetime free supercharging is a great thing to have if you use it, but I will tell you, if you sell your car, you're going to lose it. So, not quite sure what the question was there. So again, email me directly. There you go, Ken. Someone's asking about park and fly for 2 weeks in winter. Nope, don't park it for 2 weeks unless you can at least get a wall plug and plug it in there. And someone else is asking about best winter tires for summer and winter driving. I've never heard of this. They're asking about Vredstein Quattro Pro tires. Never heard of them. I think you definitely need to go with snow tires. There's no question in my mind. It puzzles me to no end that people are still talking about all season tires or, all weather tires or something, especially with the weather we've got now. 4 snow tires is the best way to go. No doubt in my mind. We have 3 or 4 sponsors that can help you with those. And in my mind, if you can get them, Nokians are the best. Michelin X-Ice are close second, and Bridgestone Blizzaks after that. But again, look out there. There's lots of sites like Tire Rack and people like that will do tests and ratings on tires, and so that's what I would say.
Hey, John,
yeah.
Mike, a couple of our members actually have good luck with the Nokian I think they're called all-weather tires. So they're a good 4-season. They're not like an all-season tires. These are a winter-rated tire, but that can be used in the summer. I forget the exact name of them, but I know we do have some members that speak highly of them.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I mean, we had a presentation from the Nokian people a couple of years ago, and the thing is, they're in Finland, I think it is, so that they get it. But I think the average all-weather tire is just not going to cut it. And my concern would be they obviously have to have a pretty aggressive tire tread. You put that on, and you're going to wear them more than normal in the summer weather. So that would be my advice, anyhow.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So what I'd recommend is the winter tires, don't really have a lot of wear available, right? So I recommend all seasons for spring, summer, and fall, and then winters for the winter. But don't try to extend your winters into the spring too far, and don't put the winters on too early. And then your tires are going to last a very long time. But then that way your all seasons can handle a bit of a storm in the spring or in the fall. But keep your winters for sort of hardcore winter driving, and they'll last a long time. And
they last a much longer. I mean, I've still got my same winters from 2016. I've had on 2 or 3 different vehicles. So both sets of tires will last longer as a rule.
I do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, Kent's already been talking to us, but we're now going to turn the reins over to Kent Rathwell. Many of you may remember he was on our Zoom meeting with us, I think 2 or 3 months ago with, slipped my mind. What was the other chap's name, Kent?
I
don't know. On the spot.
I'm trying to go through I'm
senior moment. Anyhow, he did a cross-country trip quite recently in the last winter, I think it was, with a chap in an Audi.
With Harvey.
But he's also done it in Teslas and other EVs, and he's the founder of Sun Country Highway. Has really been at the forefront of charging and EV driving in Canada. And basically, I'm going to turn the meeting over to him So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, Kent. And I think you said that you're going to show a few slides. And then I've also got lots of questions here that I'll ask out loud, and raise your hand if there's anything that's different than what you're hearing, and we'll try to have you be able to answer those directly. So it's all yours, Kent.
Perfect. I actually won't be sharing some slides.
Oh.
I had a last minute adjustment in my schedule, and it took my time away to be able to do that. But anyway.
Okay, we're never having you on again, buddy. That's it.
Exactly. I'll go back to it was a question that actually popped into my head today. The chicken or the egg scenario, right? There's a lot of sectors that this happens to, and there's a lot of delays in those sectors because of that. But ultimately, in the chicken and the egg was, does the electric car come first or does the infrastructure? And no one really knows until you try, I guess. But I figured, for almost 140 years we've had electric cars, but they've never taken off. And so my answer to that is the infrastructure had to come first. And because why buy an electric vehicle without infrastructure? Why have infrastructure with electric vehicles? But you have to build the highways before the vehicles can travel down them. And so the infrastructure is the answer to that question. So so basically, the origination of Sun Country Highway was to just make sure the electric vehicle survived. And again, it's been around for over a century, but it didn't survive for two reasons. Number one, you couldn't really travel very far. And number two, you couldn't travel for free. So the main reason was you couldn't travel very far. But the idea by creating an EV infrastructure across Canada and then around the world was really that was free, was to really just increase the speed of adoption and of the electric car, because free's never, it's never been available before for the automobile. And if you want to speed up the rate of adoption, free is a good way to do it. It doesn't matter what you put in your vehicle. If it's free and your vehicle moves on it, then odds are you're going to see some adoption. So, but the other reason why I did that was definitely not for a business model. It was really to speed up the electric car, to shorten the valley of death in any disruptive technology. And EVs are, but without EV infrastructure, they're not. So, we really needed to get EV adoption going quickly to save Tesla, because they were really on their knees. And Elon had put his last money in when I was down there checking out the Tesla Roadster. And I searched a long time to find that, find this company called Tesla. So obviously, 99.99% of people around the world never heard of them before, right? Never heard of an electric vehicle. More people believed in space or, UFOs than they did electric cars, because more people had seen UFOs than they had electric cars back then. So that was really the impetus of Sun Country Highway, was just to keep knocking down the barriers. And I'll get into, so what barriers were there pertaining to the electric car? Well, number one, there's no infrastructure, so you couldn't go anywhere. So why buy an EV? They don't exist because most people didn't hear of them, and they wouldn't work in the cold. Big one. They can't travel long distances. They're not fast and sexy. They're like golf carts. People had all these preconceived notions of the electric car, so that's why I bought two Roadsters, and then electrified the Trans-Canada in 2012, and the first island in the world, which is Vancouver Island, and the first province theater nation in the world, which is 100% of PEI. Same as 100% of Vancouver Island, and then and then we created the longest green highway in the world. And when the plan was to do it in 12 months, but then I was stressing out, because every morning and every night I was checking to see if Tesla was still alive, and so I just said, you know what, we're going to get this done way faster, and so we didn't do it in 12, we did it all in 8 months, and so that blew the budget by about 400% more. But we got it done before Tesla disappeared, and then I really wanted to drive it in the worst environment in Canada, or virtually in the world, because a lot of the world thinks Canadians live in igloos in a lot of places. So what better country to do it than in Canada? And it's also the widest part of the continent. Like there was just no way to be able to, slander this type of initiative because it was the widest part of the continent, virtually the coldest and the freest, the coldest and most rugged free democracy in the world. And then, we had Rockies, and we went beyond sea to sea because, Newfoundland all the way to Victoria. So that was really the strategy behind it. But I highly recommend, well, first of all, so we drove 10,000 kilometers that trip along the world's longest green highway. And we tied in a lot of other cities that weren't right on the Trans-Canada. And so I wanted to hit that big number so that people would go, whoa, 10,000 kilometers, that's over 10,000 kilometers. They can travel that in an electric car. That's amazing. And then over the whole distance of the continent and the whole country, and over the Rocky Mountains, beyond sea to sea, with no tailpipe, with no tailpipes in the vehicle, so no tailpipe emissions, in a car that was faster and sexier than virtually everybody's car, which was the Tesla Roadster, and then to be able to do it for free. So after that, the genie was out of the bottle. Pandora's box was open. There's no putting it back. The electric car is safe. So that was my initial thought. But then, the next year we actually did virtually all the, 99% of Canadians. We electrified them with free infrastructure, so that all Canadians could go. And then the Americans started calling and pulling us down there. So, but yeah, we could virtually travel anywhere in Canada, and you couldn't travel everywhere in California conveniently, right? So, but when I drove across in the winter, it was really a white knuckling experience. I wouldn't let anybody else ride with me for a few reasons, and I was a really comfortable driver in the winter. But it was really hairy, and the experiences are just, you don't want to experience those experiences in the winter. So I highly recommend don't travel the whole Trans-Canada in the middle of a Canadian winter, because you got to be insane. So, but we had issues all the way through, to even, Hope and Vancouver was a disaster. Then got into the island and the Vancouver Island, thinking in Nanaimo, okay, we're good. And it was a disaster. And then we rolled in.
Sure, let me interject. When was this time frame?
2012, 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, we rolled in Victoria, and the clouds parted, the snow stopped, the clouds parted, and the sun came out. So it was just like, you got to be kidding. We went through all of that, and this is how we finish off. So, it was just like, no one here is going to understand what we just went through. But there's probably 5, 6, 7 serious road closures and things like that within that period of time. So
you're driving a Roadster, and there was no superchargers, which you can't supercharge anyhow, and everything was probably 40 and 50 amp chargers, right?
No, like Tesla, it was years until Tesla had charging, even their destination chargers. Right. It was many years after we had completed the Trans-Canada. No, there was no infrastructure in the world across the country at that point. And there wasn't any really infrastructure across, any province, state, or nation that was convenient. But no, I actually commissioned a 100 amp charging station, and with the J1772 plug for everybody. And then I realized that the Roadster would only charge at a 90 amps, so it wouldn't actually charge at 100 at all. So we downgraded the 100 amp chargers down to a 90, and then that's what we rolled out across the country. So I could get 300 kilometers in 3 hours in the Roadster at 90 amps, so pretty fast. And so, like, even the Model 3, it's a light car. It could get some serious distance if Tesla would put a 100 amp onboard charger in it, and you can travel for free, virtually free anywhere in Canada and the USA and other countries on our charging network. But like the Nissan Leaf, for instance, for a 50 kilowatt charger, you're $50,000 to $100,000. But the 50 kilowatt, charger going up to 100% on a Nissan Leaf, our 100 amp chargers would get a Nissan Leaf there just as fast and for free. And for $100,000, we could probably put about 20 of our chargers in, compared to having one DC 50 kilowatt charger. But, so my message to the automakers has been getting them for a decade, has been getting them to go beyond the 40 amp standard that they set. And the Electrical Association at that time had, the world's basically set it at 40 amp level 2. 32 continuous. So so to come out with 100 was incredibly disruptive, or anything above that, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
Well, and just to bring some clarity too, because Kent went into more detail on his last Zoom meeting with us a couple of months ago, but check it out. There is a Sun Country Highway. Is it .ca, Kent?
Yeah, .ca.com.
And you have an actual charging map on there. You show where your chargers are. And so basically Kent got places like hotels and restaurants and places like that to put these chargers in for free and pay for the power. So when he talks about charging across the country or driving across the country and charging for free, that's what he's talking about. So this is a guy that put a charging network right across Canada years and years ago before anything like we have in place today.
Yeah, I put two of Kent's 100 amps in at Cambridge Hydro when I was working there, and I remember it had that feature where you could drop it down to 90 for the Roadsters. You double tap the button or something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, basically what we did on those was that came afterwards. That was about 2 years after.
That's right.
But the first ones were our 100 amps, and we programmed them down to 90. And then I was constantly trying to figure it out. Even though there was only 40 Roadsters in Canada, I didn't want to leave anyone behind, right? And we found that the Americans would squeeze up into Canada and the Roadsters and then travel all over the place because they couldn't go anywhere in California or really the States. It was painful. But yeah, and then we figured out to set the charges at 90 amp. But and then the green light would flash, and then if you hit it once, the stop start button, then it would boost it right up to 100.
That's right, yeah.
But there's not many cars like even the Teslas came with a twin charger, and then I can get up to 100 amp charging. And then they started ramping it down. So,
But Ken, you don't have 100 amp everywhere, do you? Because I thought there was some of the hotels only have 40, 50 amp.
Yeah, that's right. So our strategy was to initially, we gave them all away for free, right? Because it would have been a lot easier to build UFO landing sites because people believed in those, but they didn't believe in electric cars or that they even existed, right? So we gave them all away for free, and like internationally. And then realized after a few years maybe that's not a good business model. So, but ultimately, it did what I wanted to do. So, but yeah, so the pickup trucks and whatnot coming out, they're going to 100 amp charging. Like I've been pounding the automakers for a long time, and at the senior level and at the design level, for the last 10 years to get them up to 100 amp chargers. So because it's also going to help protect the grid, because if you can get 100 amps when 100 amps is available and the grid can easily handle it, it needs to dump it in your car. And it's better to dump it in your car than dump it into battery storage and then dump it into your car, later. Like, just increase the onboard chargers. It should be a government regulation at 100 amp charging. And if the power is there, then the car can suck it up, So that's how we're going to balance the grid without having to spend a lot of money.
So the other thing is, because I'm going to jump into some of these questions here.
Please.
How did you afford this? I mean, I sort of know, but tell everybody what's Sun Country all about prior to you doing this. What were you doing back then to generate revenue, and what do you still do today to generate revenue? What's your business model for the company?
Yeah, so back then I had I'm from Ontario originally. So the reason I went to Saskatchewan was I studied all the provinces. I traveled across all the provinces, did my own surveys, and said, "Where's the last province you'll move your family to, invest all your money, or go on a holiday?" And I got a rating, from the worst to the best, I guess. And Saskatchewan was the worst. So PEI was actually the second worst. So those were my targets. Because I knew Ontario was going to suffer economically because we weren't really making the right decisions for a lot of years, and that I knew we'd become a have-not. So my goal was to go out and fire up some other provinces and basically try to turn the ugly ducklings into a swan, and those engines would be fired up before Ontario hit the skids, was my strategy. So I went to Saskatchewan, and then tried to figure out what to do out there to fire up the province, and I decided on the poultry industry, and then pounded it, studied it, laid it out, and then pounded it out internationally, and then brought people in from around the world and in Canada to a degree into Saskatchewan, and grew the ROIs in that sector by 100% annually or more. And then that turned it into the hottest ag sector in the world. Went from the oldest farmers to the youngest, and the oldest buildings, which were basically PETA advertisements waiting to happen, to the newest buildings per capita and the most efficient barns in Canada. So the idea was to say, hey, if this can be the hottest ag sector in the world, what else could be good in Saskatchewan? So that was sort of the model, right? Was to bring a lot of people there and turn it to a hab province within 10 years. So it took 8.5. Should have been faster, but the government wasn't really on side with my initiative. So I had to do too much of it myself. But yeah, so that's why we made actually PEI the first province, state, or nation in the world that you could actually travel 100% of it and 100% electric vehicle, 100% for free. So I was had a large poultry farm out there, so we sold it and then cashed out on a whole bunch of other things, and then put it all into Tesla stock, and that was around in the 20s. Dollar amount for the share, so pretty good. And then basically ended up just gradually selling it off to give all these away for free. So the investment today in Tesla would have been close to $1 billion or zero. I lean towards zero, so don't really, I didn't really lose anything in my eyes anyway. So yeah, so that's basically the story there. That's how I raised the funds, because you couldn't go to a bank, right, or anybody else, and I couldn't ask for anybody to invest into this, right? Obviously, because we're giving stuff away for free, so it didn't really make any sense. But what it did do is the goal was to help ensure the electric car survived and help Tesla survive. So after we did the world's first island in the world, the world's first province, state, or nation, and the longest green highway in the world, I was going to taper it right down to basically that's it, and I just sit on my stock, and hopefully it would increase. And because we slashed a lot of barriers around the world, we had media from virtually every country in the world, every language and script almost. Like it was we had great support from the media around the world on those initiatives on the world's longest green highway project. But the next year, we finished it December 21st. In Victoria, and then went home for Christmas and the holidays, and to think about now what, and is it safe? And I came out of that in the 1st of January going, nope, not safe. So created a program for the next year, which was to virtually electrify 99% of connect 99% of Canadians with free EV infrastructure, and virtually electrify every highway, goat path in the country. And so then if Tesla went down, then somebody else around the world that was thinking, hey, it'd be good to build an electric car, or we're working on one, would simply go, well, why don't we go to Canada and do it? Because the infrastructure is it's all over the whole country, and it's free to use virtually everywhere. So let's go there. So that was my backup plan if Tesla didn't make it. And as soon as I decided on that, I realized that I was going to burn through a lot more dollars, and did. Went through all of the Tesla stock. But I actually had peace of mind, because I knew that if Tesla did go down, that somebody would come to Canada and do it. And I was hoping they would, because then I wouldn't have to do it. But if I did, then I'd have to build an electric car, I guess. But so that was really my strategy. And so it's
an unbelievable really story. Why hasn't somebody written a book?
Oh, don't have time for that. So we still have a lot to go. We still have a lot to go. Mm-hmm.
What I was going to ask you, I mean, it is an unbelievable story, and I was pretty familiar with most of it, but I bet a lot of our audience weren't. So give us an idea, how many actual individual charging stations have you put in around the world and Canada specifically?
Yeah, well, after we did that, and we're pounding out virtually every highway in Canada and road and freeway and goat path, I went back down to Tesla and said, all right, yeah, this is recording, right? So the funny thing about Tesla is I signed a ton of NDAs. So it
only stays within the club in theory, but anyhow.
Okay, yeah. So ultimately, it was like, hey, well, they didn't even have an NDA at that point. I think they're just trying to survive still. But it was sort of like, hey, you guys need to help me out. You guys need to put in some chargers here, because it's not a good business model for me, but at least you guys sell a car out of it, right? So anyway, so laid out a roadmap for, you know, what I was hoping they would do. And then, yeah, so when they notified me and said, okay, we've got some chargers here, and it's like, all right, that was a couple of years, you know, a few years after that, actually. And then it was, all right, let's roll them out. So we rolled those out internationally, you know, with, you know, for them or with them. And then so that was a destination program, and then the level the level 3 came along, and it was just like, hold on, I've got enough stuff to do. You guys are good, you guys can handle it, right? So, but advised them on some locations and some other stuff there. But other than that, they were really away, and I was really still focused on the free EV charging.
So again, sorry to interrupt. How many branded Sun Country highway chargers do you think you've put in?
Well, we've put a lot of different brands in, and then in regards to the destinations as well, right? So,
or even the ones that you paid for, how many have you put in?
I have no idea. It's never been a.
It's got to be thousands.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we're over 10,000. You know, so
yeah.
Sure, yeah. But you look at what's going on around the world, and just I think yesterday, the electric vehicle outsold the diesel in Europe. Like that's tremendously amazing. We didn't really adopt the diesels on the consumer cars, but we did. But Europe did, and that's tremendous. It's really, you know, we're not even 10 years since we completed the world's longest green highway project, right? You know, and since we landed in Victoria, that's December 21st of this year coming. You know, so it's pretty crazy how fast this moved. I will put a lot of that on free EV charging, right? But if we would have charged $1 or this or that, or if we would have charged people $5,000 for a charger, they would have never put them in. You know, we would have really extended the valley of death for quite a few more years, I think, if we didn't do that. Yeah, and then you know, my goal in really the electric car was if the electric car survived, then we'd get battery storage. If the battery storage was created, we'd have 100% renewable grids. That was my goal. My manufacturing plant was 100% electric 15 years ago. It was the first zero emission business in Saskatchewan, first zero emission factory potentially in the world, maybe. And then we did a whole value chain, right? So we created 10,000 liters of bio oil a day out of waste farmer products to, in theory, power our farmers' fleets and our highway fleets, and zero emission processing and cleaning plant. And we took a coal facility, you know, somebody else's, and we gave them all our biomass from our cleaning facility because we set it up right there. So it wiped out their coal that they were using. And yeah, and then we put charging stations at retailers so people could, you know, charge up there for free and buy our products and then go home. And the incentive there was if we can get people to buy an electric car, our message was to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, if you buy an electric car, you can charge up at the retailers for free. And if you stay there for an hour, you've saved enough money in gas to get your product from us for free. So, you know, if you use a lot of birdseed, then that's what you should do, right? Just buy an electric car, hang around the store for an hour, and it's all free, right? Every hour is a free bag of birdseed, basically, compared to what you're paying for gas before. So,
sorry, somebody's saying they were asking where these chargers are installed, and I just typed in your address, suncountryhighway.ca. He's asking where the map is. I'm sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, we've had a few, and then PlugShare wanted some support. So the idea with PlugShare, it's awesome, right? Because you can go there and you can find all the different, you know, providers for the most part. What we found recently was a lot of ours still aren't on there. So we actually have a full-time person going through and getting all of ours on PlugShare to support all EV owners, right? So
do you not have your own map anymore under your website?
No, we did, but we have something coming out. Again, we're trying to stay ahead of the stream, but we did have a map, and then PlugShare came along, and it was like, you know what, this is better to funnel people to PlugShare, because then you know, sure, it's great promoting ours, but like, you know, my goal was just to make sure that they were safe, and especially in the winter. So yeah. Mm-hmm. But the winter is unique to Canada. You know, most people in the world don't understand it, and it's probably the biggest issue. You know, and you know, with Tesla out of California, is they don't really understand our weather so much up here, right? So and how critical it is. Like when I was driving across the country that winter on the world's longest green highway project, there was people, when I was driving through Saskatchewan, there's people getting blown off the roads and dying in the ditches from cold, so like it was serious stuff. And so like there was a lot of experiences like that in the cold, right? So like we got to Banff and we got a meter of snow, and it took a whole day to get from Banff to Revelstoke, and that's only about a under a 2-hour drive typically, right?
Well, here's a pertinent question right on that topic. How long will a battery charge last on a stuck highway with generally just the seat heaters on? We talked about that today.
Yeah. So the seat heaters, you don't buy an electric car without seat heaters, period. They will last, as far as I'm concerned, days if you have, decent amount of charge in there. But it's the fan that kills the batteries. And so when I went across the country, I went across in a Canada Goose jacket and Canada Goose gloves and a Canada Goose toque. So I didn't use much energy because it was never done before. I had no idea what I was going to run into. And so, and I designed it so the chargers were every, say, 100 kilometers or so that we could hit one charger and it would be down, hit by a snowplow, whatever, and we could still get to the next charger. So it was it was definitely not a comfortable trip. But if you don't need to travel in the winter, don't do it, right? In any vehicle, like along the Trans-Canada. But if you're doing it, make sure you have, in Ontario, I don't think studded tires are allowed, but I had studded Nikians on when across the country. I've tried, Bridgestones and Michelins, and Michelins are getting better for sure. But I had studded tires, and I still have studded tires. Where I'm in Saskatchewan, Alberta. They're allowed here, and man, they're night and day difference. And my Tesla's my Model S was on one of the first trucks. Basically, I think it was number 12, right? So it was on the first truck or two in Canada, and it was all real wheel drive. So funny story, it arrived in Toronto, and I was taking it straight over to the Toronto Auto Show because Tesla didn't have money to do trade shows. So we did all the automotive trade shows ourselves just to promote Tesla, right? So but we bought all our cars and everything else, but we didn't get any support from them really, other than moral support. But when it arrived at the Tesla dealership in Toronto, we got like 3 feet of snow in Toronto that night, and we had to shovel the whole parking lot to get the car through. It was, and then onto the streets, and those tires are like hockey pucks. Yes. So it's been an interesting ride, in the EV space, I guess. Lots of stories. But definitely, I think all cars really should have winter tires, and I think if we would actually lower all of our insurance rates across the board. And so I would be okay, if they regulated that for a few years, test it out, make it mandatory for say 2 or 5 years, and actually see if our insurance costs come down because a lot, reduction in crashes. But winter for sure, it's a bad deal. When I was at Revelstoke traveling across the country, we arrived there and everyone just got to sleep. And I went down to check in the car, go through some things. And there was a foot of snow on the car in about an hour. And I went to the desk and I said, did they close the road yet? Because you couldn't really see out there at all. And she's going, no, they don't close until in the morning. And, probably at 4 or 6 in the morning, it was like, okay, good. So we're checking out right now. So I went and got everybody and said, we're leaving right now. And we actually got to Salmon Arm, but I couldn't see anything on the road. I was driving by the shadow line of the sides of the roads, and I was there was snow coming over the hood of the roads. It was crazy. So again, highly recommend not traveling in Canada in the winter in any vehicle.
But I mean, I think the thing is, there's a lot of these questions are prompted by publicity. We've had our highways closed here in Ontario, a lot of them in the Toronto area yesterday or the day before, I think it was. In the US, there's people stranded for 14, 16 hours, and they're dealing with people saying, yeah, good luck driving an electric car. Well, guess what? As long as your car is not near empty, half, 3/4 of a charge or more, I understand that you can last 14 to 16 hours or more, even with a bit of heat on in your car. So the battery doesn't drain anywhere near as fast when people think for things that don't include driving.
The batteries in an electric car are much bigger than in any gas vehicle, and so with the seat heaters, you're good way longer than any other vehicle out there. So they're safe. And in this last trip across the country, now we did it in the summer because we wanted speed. When we drove from St. John's to Victoria in 4 days and a bunch of hours and a few hours plus ferry, so under 5 days total, all in, and that was awesome doing it in the summertime. But yeah, the gas stations were all closed at night, and or most of them were. But the charging stations were all lit up and good to go. So it's actually safer in an electric car now. Traveling Canada, if you're coming straight through or traveling at night, than it is really with a gas car. And I would say it's safer in the winter as well with an electric car. You just gotta be prepared. And how I got up to 1,000 kilometers with the Roadster was I would charge up, when I'm sleeping, and I would go for it, leave in the morning and go to a restaurant, and that we have another one of our chargers, and charge up there and eat breakfast there, because I could get 100 or 200 kilometers and say 100 kilometers past the hotel, charge up for an hour, and I was full again. So then I would take off from the restaurant, and I could do 1,000 kilometers a day in that thing that way, 10 years ago. So, the nice thing about electric cars, they're heavier than typically gas vehicles, so you have more traction. And so, like an all-wheel drive, an electric vehicle with winter tires, there's nothing like it, in the consumer vehicle segment, and nothing that's ever been created like it, as far as I'm concerned, in the consumer electric segment. Mm-hmm.
So here's a question, sort of the general question: how do you best charge and preserve your battery life in cold weather?
Well, the technology is changing in the electric vehicle, in the battery technology for sure. But with the original cars, you'd want to drain them right down to zero once in a while. Well, almost to zero, not zero because they would brick actually at that point. Then your battery was toast. So it's not like the cars nowadays where you don't have to worry about that. But back then, yeah, if it bricked, it was like 35, 40 grand, and that's it. So there's a lot of stress back there driving those vehicles. But to balance the cells, it was good to take them right down close to zero, and then charge them up slow overnight or over a weekend, say on 110 or whatever. And that really helps to maintain the batteries, or it has back then. Again, they're changing. There's new EV coming out almost every day now. So and the technology is changing. But that was one to extend the life of the battery, to balance out the cells to get more distance. Another one is charging up, before you leave, or turning on the car and, running things. But I liked actually charging up the car at 100 amps for half an hour before I left. So, in the mornings. So then you're good to go. And again, that's changed from today in a lot of the cases. Well,
I think the key is just to elaborate on your balancing. I don't know if you need to do that on a regular basis, but if you see the display in your car, it looks like you've lost 20, 40, 60 kilometers of range. It's just not like it's lost. It's just that, as you say, it need to be rebalanced. And what Ken just described certainly can work. And all that's available again on the internet. There's all kinds of people that talk about that.
Yeah. And the other thing is you're driving, right? Your brakes in an EV, can last 200,000 kilometers, right? If you really don't use them much, and you don't need to if the regen's pretty good on them. And the Teslas have always had pretty aggressive regen. So that's a great way to extend your life. Drafting isn't really a real safe thing to do. But lowering the suspension, obviously, there's been so many times where I've been in trouble, but I got through. But it's lowering the suspension, watching the different charts on the screens.
Only on Model S and X, obviously. I just wanted to make sure I clarify that.
Yeah, I had in the Roadster as well a bit, but it was just a little wee screen, and but yeah, and they had. Different another gauge and a different a digital display on that. So it was really pretty hardcore before. You're thinking a mile a minute, and now it's getting a lot better for sure. And it's pretty easy, right? You hit your destination on the Tesla now, and it gives you your range, based upon the next charger, right? the next supercharger, I guess. And that's great. The one thing I do miss in the Teslas though is they used to show up. They used to show on your screen every charger you ever charged on. So it didn't need to be a Tesla charger at all. It was just any charger that you charged on, right? So the Tesla screen actually became better than PlugShare or any other app out there. And Tesla's got rid of that, and they've really just focused on Tesla chargers. And I really do miss that feature because you know, that really took away a lot of stress.
Well, you must have Elon's personal email, don't you? Like, come on, like you could ask him to put that back in.
Well, if you look at it, you know, today's different because, you know, they're worth more than everybody else put together. But back then, you know, it was just you know, really very difficult, very much a wildfire, right? So that's why I just helped them as much as I could. And
well, someone asked earlier in one of the chats here, does the richest man in the world, has he supported any of your initiatives?
You know what? No. So he didn't really have any money for a long time, but he's you know, Mars is expensive. So, yeah. So no, it was funny because we paid for all the auto shows. We went Toronto and Vancouver, and you know, in Toronto, and we did you know, a lot of FCM events, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, all over the place. And my little roadster, I bet you there's, initially I was keeping it quite limited, but then it was just like, you know what, let the people sit in it, take photos, they can share it on social media. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's, you know, half a million people that have actually sat in my cars. Just because, you know, they had never seen one before. So the best thing was taking a photo and then Facebooking it, right? And yeah, so that was pretty good.
Here's a very specific question. This person plans to drive out to Vernon in Silver Star, leaving February 7th in a Model Y from Owen Sound. We're allowing extra days for weather. We have 4 snow tires. They want to know if you have any special advice, especially between Calgary to Vernon section across the Rockies. And is there any specific hotels you recommend for charging?
Yeah, well, I would say the prairies are more dangerous than the Rockies because they're a lot colder typically. So you know, don't take the prairies lightly at all. It's the most dangerous part in Canada as far as I'm concerned in the winter. Definitely charge up. I wouldn't travel in the winter. Like if you don't need to, take some extra time. I mean, at night. You know, if you have an issue, then in the daytime, people can at least see you. But Tesla superchargers are pretty good. It's too bad that they can't use the CCS yet, but just take your time and enjoy it, and don't stress out. And take your time and fill up when you can, right? Like, you know, a lot of EV advocates for the last 10 years, and everyone on this call is still an early adopter, and it's because of everyone on this call and everyone else that has supported this industry, whether they bought vehicles or put in charging stations or whatever. You know, they saved the electric car. You know, it wasn't one person, it wasn't 2 people, it was all of the people around the world that did these things, and honestly, they're not getting the thanks for it. So it wasn't Elon, it wasn't me, it was everyone who, you know, followed, right, and who, you know, put in the chargers ahead of the cars, right? So like the original chargers that we put in and you know, for free internationally, we mandated that they paid for the install, because if they didn't pay for the install, sure as guns, if EVs ever survived and they showed up, then they would have had the breaker off because they're too cheap to leave it on, because they don't want anyone to take their power on them, because they didn't buy into the vision. And that's why I mandated that they had to do that. Now, to do that, it costs about 25 grand per charger to put it in, actually, just to find those locations. But on average, that's what it cost, even though the charger was, you know, a tenth of that, say. But it was took a lot of man hours and time and expenses to find those locations. Yeah. But that's why we did what we did, and I really wanted to make sure that if somebody did show up, that the experience was amazing, and they would tell their friends, you know, it's sort of funny. I went to this place, restaurant, hotel, whatever. And not only did they charge up my electric vehicle for free, they bought me a beer and dinner, you know, like, and then they would tell a million friends, and then their friends would go, really? You know, all they have to do is buy an electric car and people will fill up my car and buy me beer and dinner. That's a good deal. So, you know, that was my strategy.
One of the guys here is asking, sorry, let me just go back to this. How damaged is it to the battery system to charge fully on a regular basis? Well, I'll answer that quickly and then you can jump in. Basically, they recommend that you not charge your car to 100% all the time. The only one that's against that, I don't even know if they're coming to Canada yet, is this new, what is it, the LFP batteries or something, the iron-based battery. You can charge those to 100%. But they recommend, and I've always done this, 80 to 90%. It should be on a regular basis. And I can tell the average person, whether you're a new EV driver, thinking about EV or experienced, there's no doubt, just plug your car in all the time. ABC, always be charging. Try to precondition it before you leave, winter or summer. It's even more important in the winter. By turning on the heat, it's going to precondition the battery. If it's a really cold day, precondition it earlier than normal. And the killer for range is if you get in your car, no matter how much you've conditioned it, frankly, but especially if it's fairly cold and you just drive a whole bunch of short trips. So all of the starting and stopping and warming up the car and the cooling down is a killer. It's when it's on the highway and everything evens out, and or it's preconditioned well in advance, is a lot easier on your range and on the battery. And the other thing is, for sure, we mentioned earlier, is you're going to a supercharger, put it in the destination, even if you know where it is, put the supercharger into your destination before you leave, and the car will precondition itself and either warm it up, the battery, or cool it down, or whatever, to take the best state of charge. Would you add anything to that, Kent?
Yeah. Well, if you max out your battery to 100%, then your regen's not going to work, obviously. Well, not obviously, you have to, but I think.
Well, when you experience that for the first thing, oh, what's going on? I got no regen, because you can't.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, the dollar signs start showing up, going, "Oh, did I wreck something?" Right? But yeah. So yes, typically what I would do is, before I left, if I'm traveling long distance, and again, this is 10 years of over 10 years of 11 years of driving. I would charge it up, close, 80%, and then I would turn it on in the morning, and then take it right up to 100, and then it was all preconditioned, and then we're good to go. So that was my strategy. And if I couldn't, then yeah, you'd want to, take it for a little bit of a drive, warm up the battery that way, bring it back, charge it up a little bit, and then you're good to go. You don't want to be leaving at 88, at 60 or 70 or 80% with your battery not conditioned, and because when it's cold, your regen doesn't work either. So that's, now you're using your brakes. But you're not generating all the value from those moments or going downhill. So there's probably 101 different little strategies, right? But you have to.
Well, speed is also the killer. People forget. You drive 100, 140 in the summer, you're going to get way more range than if you drive 120, 140 in the winter. Yeah. And everybody forgets that. And frankly, it's the same with an ICE car. I mean, the faster you drive an ICE car, the poorer your fuel economy is going to be. There's poor fuel economy in the winter in an ICE car. And that's one of the questions here. What do they expect for range loss? 20 to 40%, depending on the conditions. I would say yes. So there's cases where you can get a 50% range loss. It's really cold. You didn't precondition the car, a whole bunch of short trips, and then you get on the highway. There could be that. So just don't ever hesitate. Plug it into whatever you can get. Obviously, the highest amperage is possible, and have it preconditioned before you leave. Another person just asked, is there a formula? I'm not aware of this, but is there a formula for how long you should precondition the car? In other words, warm the battery relative to temperature. I'm not aware of a formula. If anybody knows of that, throw it in the chat there. But I just sort of got used to it, if it's really cold out, to make sure you do it for more than half an hour.
That's right. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you're in trouble, drop your speed. And it was sort of hard initially, and because we wanted to promote the EV, we didn't want to, have people videoing us at 70 kilometers and 90 kilometers an hour and 100 on a 100 kilometer range highway. But now, it doesn't really matter. The EV is safe, you're good to go. But yeah, drop down to 90 or 85 if you need to. And, but 90 is still pretty safe on a freeway if you get into trouble, but do it early. Don't wait to the end. And if you need to, draft, but I can't say that I've never done that. But the other thing is in the prairies, this is a funny story. A fella that worked on the EV1, he actually was head of service and maintenance and whatnot for the EV1 back 100, no, not 100 years ago, but but 35 years ago, say. And so when he drove my Model S in Saskatchewan, he was down in Regina. I think we're at an event or something. We're probably at 1,000 events in the last 10 years. So it just all blurs, but big and small, just to get attention, right? And show these electric cars off. But he ended up taking off in the morning. I was already in Saskatoon. He came from Regina, and he called me and he goes, "Hey, I'm really going through a lot of energy here." And he goes, "I don't really understand it." And he wasn't even halfway to Saskatoon. And we're talking a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive. So I said, "Okay, well, this is in this spring or summer or fall." And I said, "Well, the wind speed must be really bad." And he goes, "Yeah, I got a heck of a headwind." And it's like, "Well, slow down." Or I said, "How many kilometers?" He said, "Oh, I do 120. He's like, "Slow down fast, right? Go to, 90 and sort of see what's going on." So I walked him through it. And then he got up to Davidson, which is in the middle, and charged up. But it was on a slower charger because at that location, they didn't allow the speed. That was sort of our secret to success. We had a whole bunch of different ranges of EV chargers. So whatever the breaker size was at that location, that's what we would put in. So that really reduced the install, and no one had to do, panel upgrades and stuff. But so anyway, so he left there, and he called me and he goes, "Hey, I've left there, And I said, "Well, you're not full yet." And he goes, "Oh no, I think I'll be okay. The range says it's okay." And I was like, you might want to go back. And he goes, "Oh, I'm going to give it a shot." So he almost got to Saskatoon, and he had to turn around and go back. So it was just, actually, no, he came up to Davidson, almost to Davidson. He had to go back to Regina. So then he charged up longer at Regina and came up to Davidson, and he got there, and then he charged up, and then he left there too early and almost got to Saskatoon. He had to go back to Davidson, and then he finally did a full charge and he got to Saskatoon. That's the prairies, right? And that's the summer in the prairies. It's hot and it can be very windy. So make sure that you have lots of charge when you're going through the prairies. So
somebody else asked about reserve. I mean, there is no, in other words, if you let the car go right down to zero, is there a reserve? I'm going to say unofficially, there obviously is some type of reserve because we've heard that reported, but there is no official notice that you get 10, 20, 40, 50 kilometers when it says zero. Just don't ever get yourself in a position where you're going to do that. I realize some extreme things can happen occasionally, but just don't put yourself in a position where it's ever going to happen to you.
Some people have run out with it still showing 1, 2, or 5 left as well.
Yeah.
You got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've ran out with 30 kilometers left on the old Model S, right? So I don't really trust the bottom of it, but even with a gas vehicle, it's not good to run out of gas because that wrecks your filters and it gets expensive. It's not good for your engine, and no different than really electric. You don't want to get down into that bottom 10% very much because that's hard on your battery too.
Somebody's asking, can the watt hours per kilometer on the binnacle be trusted for winter driving? I don't know whether you can answer that, or maybe Mike wanted to jump in. Or
yeah, I use different charts on the screen. So if it's sort of tight, then I'm on the screens, trying to figure it out. I don't really trust it totally, but the secret is just make sure you have lots of range, and the new cars have lots of range. So there's really not an excuse for getting short on range nowadays if you're paying attention and you're using speed control and you're watching wind speed and the temperature.
And I think many people are saying don't really pay attention to the meter on the the little battery meter on the screen.
No.
First of all, put it in percentage, not number of kilometers. Yeah, and then the most important thing to do is look at your energy screen on the vehicle. When you hit that, you've got to think it's 10, 25, or 50 kilometer. And what it's doing, it's looking at the car's what's happened for that period of time, and it forecasts your range based on that. And I find that much more realistic, and that's where you can see the graph going up and down with regen and a lot of power usage. And I find that on a longer trip, if you look at the battery meter on the screen, you're way out of whack. You could be 100, 150 kilometers out of whack. But when you look at the energy screen, as you get towards the end of your trip that you're going to, the energy screen and the battery meter start to become a lot closer in in accuracy. So
Yeah, John, what I do, and this is just a tip, is I'll use the nav system to tell me how far I have to go, and I'll use that energy screen to show me how far I can go. And
right,
as long as can go is greater than have to go, and I usually put a buffer in there of 10 or 20%, then I'm good.
right, absolutely.
I also use Wave, Wave a lot. The app, just because it shows if there's a,
Waze, you mean Waze with the Z?
Sorry. Yeah, I knew it wasn't Wave. Wave's a charging technology or inductive charging technology.
WAZE, yeah.
Yeah, so I use Waze a lot, and it just provides a lot more information for you, and even potholes, right, which are good to not hit. I took out 2 rims and tires in Edmonton on a major pothole once, so that was an expensive trip. But you don't need to do it as much now if you have lots of charge, and the battery range, like it's double what it used to be, so it's pretty good, and it's going to 1,000 kilometers. I think it's going to be pretty much standard at 1,000 kilometers, because if we do that as well, because batteries are going down, like they used to be $2,000 say a kilowatt, now they're under $100 say, and my goal was to get batteries actually down to $20 a kilowatt. That was my goal, from say around 2000, and at that we have 100% zero emission grids, because we have tons of battery storage and such, right? So yeah, so we're not people in 10 years, they won't even know what we're talking about.
I know. We are the pioneers,
which is good. Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. I haven't heard this posed before. This person is asking, does it make any difference when they're going to on a trip and they're going to put the supercharger into the nav? Are they best to actually click on the supercharger in the nav or put the address into the destination? I don't know if it would make a difference. Has anybody heard of that?
It will make a difference, John. If you navigate to the supercharger itself, that preconditions the battery. But if you put an address in, I don't believe it recognizes it as a supercharger.
It needs to know that it's going to the supercharger by telling it in the car. Yeah, okay, I got you.
And the funny thing is, I do that for the opposite reason. I'll put in the address because I find my car charges too darn fast. I'll get to a supercharger and go in for a meal, and I'm getting up halfway through my meal to go and move the car so I don't have idle fees.
Yeah,
I'm trying to slow it down a bit.
Another person's asking a question. I think I can answer again. I'll have you guys jump in. What's more efficient when it's cold and you're not plugged in? Pre-warm the battery or drive, or just drive? I think it's still pre-warm the battery when it's not.
Nope. Just drive, John.
Really?
Oh yeah, because you're going to take energy from the wall to heat the battery up, and then you're going to drive, and then the car is going to generate its own.
No, but it's saying when it's not plugged in, Mike. The car's in a parking lot, not plugged in.
Oh, when it's not plugged in, just drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Still drive. As opposed to condition it from your car before you leave.
I'd be interested to see what Kent says, but that's been my experience, because the engine and inverter will create a little bit of heat and start warming things up as you go anyway. If you just sit there with the heater on warming the battery, I don't see the point.
Yeah, I would. I know what I've done. I'm not always right, but I would go and charge up and this is what I did actually. I cooked up the cab, right? So I would get whenever I was charging, I'd always make sure that the heat was on high.
But guys, sorry to interrupt here. Here's the question: You're at a shopping mall. You're there. You're in the mall for 2 hours. There's no charging. The car's sitting outside, not plugged in. Now you're going out to the car. Are you better off just getting in the car and driving to maximize your range, or go to your app and turn on the heat and precondition the car? It's not plugged in. Precondition the car before you leave. Is there one of those that's better than the other for distance?
Get in and drive.
Get in and drive. Yeah. Because otherwise something can happen. You can forget about your car, and next thing you know, it's like, oh my goodness, right? So you just used up your energy. But most of the time, if people are at a shopping mall, they're not too far away from home or where. Another
person's asking, does heating the cabin prior to departure by means of the phone app achieve the same purpose as battery preconditioning? That's what it is. It's one and the same, to my knowledge.
Yeah, it'll do both. If the battery needs it, it'll heat the battery as well.
Yeah, but even if your car is at a full state of charge, supposedly, and it's plugged in, you'll still see it drawing from the wall.
Right. But if you are parked, you still are, using that energy to heat up the cab, right? And that energy takes a lot of power. If you can do it, put your fan on low if you're going to do it, right? Don't have your fan on high for sure. What's a little bit of cold? You're walking out in the cold anyway. You jump in the car; it's definitely warmer than outside. And so, if you don't need to, if you're concerned on range, then don't heat.
And then another person asked, what about with all those stop and starts that I was talking about, and using climate control? Well, that's up to you. I mean, the evidence still is that the average person only does 50 to 80 kilometers a day. So if that's what you're doing, why not live in comfort? I always get the car warm before I get in the car, and for the little bit of energy that I use, I'm going to plug it in when I get home. So I always, and quite often I'll leave the car if I'm going into pick up the mail or going to pick up my grandson or something, and I leave the car for 5 minutes, I'll leave it on, which is basically what they're talking about.
Yeah, I would also say that if you have family or friends and they're jumping into your car, or even if they're around you, say, "Oh, I think I'll turn on my car." Right? What do you mean turn on the car? Well, I'm going to turn on the heat and set it here and see my app, and then they go, "Hey, that's pretty cool," right? But then
right.
if they go out to the car and they jump in and it's hot or cold based on the it's really comfortable, they're going, "This is awesome. Yeah. I'm going to get me one of these," right? So my goal is solving climate change. My goal is 40 billion tons a year of carbon that's going in the atmosphere, right? So everything I do is focused on trying to chip away at that amount, right? So if it's marketing to get your friends to buy one of these things, and to definitely do it. Don't be frugal when you can market the electric car, right?
Absolutely. JP Moadi has a question. Mike, can you unmute him, please? Or I can do it. There you go. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Kent, awesome story, by the way. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Sure. I have a new Model 3 and it has the heat pump. Is that not more efficient than the old resistance-based heating that there used to be in the original cars?
I would say in theory, yes. Practically, I'm not certain, but in theory, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think the other answer is, for example, I just watched Sandy Munro. I talked about it in the first part of the broadcast here, and he's evaluating. They're not tearing it down, but he's evaluating a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and it's got a heat pump. So a lot of the new cars are putting heat pumps in there. Unfortunately, right now Tesla's having some problems with them, but I think it's inevitable. They'll get them worked out. A lot of it's a software thing, and for what it's worth, I have an Ioniq 5 coming into the household in about a month. So if anybody's interested, I'll let you know how that vehicle is. But I hear really good things about it. So
yeah, I drove the Ioniq or the Audi e-tron across the country this summer, and it was, they did a really good job for just jumping into electric vehicles.
Yeah, there's a lot of good vehicles coming out there. I mean, we're all Tesla fanatics, we know that, but I can't afford to have a Model X and a Model Y in the household. So my wife's getting a Hyundai, and it took a long time to get her to see the advantages of an EV, even though she sees the advantages, but she was afraid of a lot of the technology. But you talk about preheating the car ahead of time. She's always reminding me, "Oh, you got to pick up the grandkids or whatever. Is the car warmed up yet?"
Yeah, exactly.
Spoiled. She's spoiled. You go out there and it's perfect, ready to go. And I told her that the other day, that you're going to be able to do that on your Hyundai. And I told somebody the other day, you can precondition the car by turning it on in the garage with the door closed. You don't have to worry about starting the car up and gassing the household to death. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Anything about, it says, as a good number of EVs cannot use CCS chargers, what's the fastest charging that J1772/CHAdeMO provides in your charging station? Well, you don't have CHAdeMOs, you only have J1772, correct?
Well, yeah, so we do have level 3. We have some really cool level 3. Yeah, so in J1772, there was really 40 amp, and then I when I was studying Tesla, the car, and trying to figure out how to build infrastructure, I was thinking, okay, so how long do you have to charge this on to get it full? And I was thinking like 12 or 16 hours, and thinking that's going to kill the electric car, not help it. So, sorry, I missed the party. I had to charge my car for 14 hours. So that's when I went and I dug deeper, and it took me months of convincing people, and I just in a $500,000 check helped to convince them to get that done. But ultimately, yeah, it was ludicrous, to look at 60 or an 80 or 100 amp charger with the J1772 plug on it, right? But I was just looking at it going, well, the Tesla would charge in about 3.5 hours, and it would go about 350 kilometers. So that's a good deal. So that's what, oh, great. So I was coming into with fresh eyes so I could approach the industry differently. And actually most disruptors coming into a sector, they're not from that sector. They're from another sector. So, but yeah, so anyway, that's the fastest speed on a level 2 is 100 amp level 2 with an 80 amp continuous charge on that. And that's what the standard should be for all vehicles. If we want to protect the grid, we need to be able to dump as much power into that car as much as possible. And a lot of businesses can offer free 100 amp charging to their guests, right? And so that's better than paying for superchargers or level 3 chargers, because level 3 chargers aren't good for the grid. You know, they're pretty bad for it.
Another person's asking, where are we here? If you're going to leave the vehicle for a week or two plugged in, what's the best battery setting? I'm a broken record. Why would you ever change it? 80 to 90%, always, 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 always. I don't understand why people say, well, I put mine to 40 or 50%. You know, here's what you have to think about. Yes, it'll draw a little bit of power to keep it at that state of charge. But if you put it at 40% and then you got to go on a long trip, and so you jam it so that, you know, the next day it goes up to 80 or 90% or 100%, that you're paying for that much power. Whereas if you keep it at 90% and it stays there, it's really not costing you much more than if you let it drain way down and then charge it right back up. And it's a safety factor. I've been caught the odd time where I forget to plug the car in because I was unloading groceries and I forgot to plug it in. You go out in the morning, you go, why is my battery way down? And if once in 9 years, but I had to go on a trip way out to the east end of Toronto. I'm like, I'm screwed. I got to charge it, but I don't really have the time to charge it. So you can get yourself caught with last minute things. It's a safety thing. You know, like we're talking about bad weather, you always want to have a good state of charge in the battery, and think of it like your up phone. Plug it in as soon as you get home. You can set it to turn on so it charges at the time of day when the power goes down. If you want, you can set it so that it's ready at a certain time in the morning. You know, that's not 100% accurate because you don't always go at the same time in the morning. But and just do it all the time. Have it 80 to 90%. Personally, I'm 90% always, and the only time I ever do 100 is the rare time I'm going on a longer trip, which for me is fairly rare, and that's just a buffer. So
John, I think you're a rebel. You're a maverick. I only go to 80.
Okay, well, that's because what Tesla used to recommend 9 years ago, and I haven't changed. But
yeah. Well, that's just in general, just for all EVs. It's they've always, it's worked out well for me. But also you don't want to get it down to the very bottom. It's not good as well for it. I did come up with I forgot. I going to think of these things, but I always leave my Tesla on range mode, or my EVs on range mode always, and because originally that your vehicle would learn, and it would actually you didn't want to flip between performance and say range. You wanted to always keep it on range, because then it would adapt to that, and it would always get you the most range.
That may have changed. I mean, I don't know if they even have range mode on Model 3 and Y, but S and X do. And the problem with that sometimes is I've had people saying, why doesn't my rear heat or rear air work? Well, if you have a Model X, range mode turns off the rear heat and rear air conditioning. So, and it can limit your power and things like that. So that's going to be a preference thing, but just be aware when you're doing it. And if you don't do long distance driving, I don't think it's necessary. But be aware that there is some limitations to what range mode does to the car itself.
Does the Model 3 and the Y come standard with the heated steering wheel?
Now they do, I think. And I believe the ones that didn't have it, they can pay $300 or something. And if as long as the car had the wiring harness, you can add it after the fact. Yeah,
that's huge. If you can have your seat heater and steering wheel heater on, you don't really need, your cab heater on for the most part. The other people in the cab might like it, but if you're traveling yourself, or if the seat heater and the steering wheel heater, that's all you need. So those should almost be mandatory in EVs as well as the 100 amp onboard charger.
What else have we got here? Does anybody know how many kilowatt hours it takes to preheat the M Model 3 at say -10? Does anybody know how many, how much power does it take to heat it to say reasonable temperature at -10? That's probably a I don't know that question. If anybody does, please throw it in the chat, because I don't know the exact answer to that.
You'd have to find someone, like Stefan or somebody who has a power meter on their
Yeah, it does it a
shore power
lot.
plug.
Yeah.
Then they could do a little experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, I will throw out there also, if you have, if you're traveling in the winter and you have a lot of buildup in your vehicle, then it's a good idea to go into an indoor, manual car wash, say, and really wash it down to get rid of that extra weight. And because weight's the enemy in electric cars. Well, I guess.
Well, and some people have asked about washing your car. I think you got to be really careful when you wash it in winter. Like the mirrors are a problem. Mine the other day, I washed it a couple of days prior, and the left-hand mirror was frozen and wouldn't open or close. So I wouldn't be closing my mirrors in the winter. Don't wash it in really, really cold weather unless it's absolutely necessary. Again, I think there's some things you can do, as I said, to put stuff around your seals, but a lot of times if you just bang on the handle on a Model 3 or Model Y, it'll pop out and you'll be fine. But they also say preconditioning the car, even for the charge port. Preconditioning the car will put some heat into that area of the car and keep the charge port defrosted, apparently. So
it definitely helps. But yeah, if you can find an indoor car wash, then just hang out there a little bit longer, right? If you can, vacuum the floor mats, after, do the inside after you've washed the outside, so it dries out a little bit.
Someone's asking, Model 3 have heated mirrors. To my knowledge, I don't know. Does anybody know that? Anybody want to answer that question, whether a newer Model 3 or Model Y has heated mirrors? JP's got a fairly new one. He says yes. So there you go. Model 3 mirrors heat at the same time the rear heater is on. Okay. What else here? Sorry, guys. I'm just going through a bunch of, some of these are sort of out of order here. Nothing even related to this, but somebody's asking about paint protection for Model Y. I know that's off topic, Kent, but I'll just quickly answer that. I would say it's a matter of budget. Paint protection, PPF is what you're talking about. Ceramic coating is a totally separate thing. It's more where you can put that on top of your paint protection or just on your paint, and that's more to keep the car looking shinier and make it easier to clean. It doesn't really protect the paint. But PPF film, I would recommend, ideally, if you're going to keep your car for a reasonable time, to do the front half of the car. So you can get, we've got 5 or 6 companies that do these kind of things, and you can do the front bumper, the fenders, the hood, the mirror caps for a fairly reasonable price. And a lot of times they'll also do like behind the trunk lid and places like that, or the area above the, or just in front of the wheel wells where they're splashing and things like that. But it's really a budget thing. Especially, but if you're going to keep your car for a period of time and you're worried about stone chips, absolutely works. I have mine fully wrapped, but that's a preference thing. So
the other thing you can actually do is wrap your windshield as well with a really good product quality, and that would help. That helps against stone chips.
Someone asked if your chargers are AC or DC. I think the answer is AC, correct?
Yeah, well, we have AC. DC wasn't reliable at all when it first came out. They were really expensive to put in, and at that point, I was trying to get automakers to standardize 100 amp level 2 charging. So it would have flew. I would have been speaking out of both sides of my mouth if I would have pushed the DC. Because it again for $100,000 installed 50 kilowatt charger. Compared to say 2100 amp chargers that could charge in theory the lower range vehicles in the same speed rate up to 100%. It's better for the EV drivers because you can give that away for free on level 200 amp charging. You can't do that with DC. And the 200 amp chargers in the same community for the same price as 100 or 150 kilowatt DC charger are a lot more reliable than the DCs at that original time. So that was the reason I was really pushing governments and regulators and the automakers to increase the onboard chargers because again, you're better to have that load distributed across the grid than really at one spot, right? And it was better for the EV owners too because the original DC chargers were down a lot.
Somebody asking about windshield washer fluid. Should they just use regular washer fluid or something special? I don't think you need anything special for a Tesla, but I will say there is windshield washer fluids that are better down to a colder temperature that you may want to use in the wintertime.
Yeah, 100%. You know, if it's, I don't think there's any really good windshield washers that are environmentally friendly. But ultimately, if you use a really, one that goes down to, say -40 or -50, then you're going to use a lot less energy trying to clear off your windshield, right? So, the ones that are specifically formulated for ice, definitely a good way to do it, because if you're driving and if you're not getting, if your windshield washer doesn't get rid of the ice, or the fluid, then you're going to have to do it with the heat of the car and the fan. And the fan is again, the fan is an enemy to range, same as weight.
Here's an interesting question for you, a little bit off topic. You'd like to hear Kent's point of view on the $150 annual tax for EVs registered in Saskatchewan. And is there any alternatives, including the possibility of adding the tax at the charging stations, such as Sun Country? So before you answer that, somebody else asked about charges. Well, just to clarify, you go to a Sun Country charger, there's no cost to charge. The fee is paid for by the host, correct, Kent?
Yeah, that's the case, and the issues are with the federal rebate plans that they have to be networked to get government funding, and that's a lobby effort from the charging networks to do that. So the governments have rarely paid or given any funding for non-network chargers, which in my eyes was completely wrong, because some of the networks they didn't even bridge into the utility, so they couldn't really ramp it down. Well, none of them were actually. So, so there was a bit of a shenanigans, I guess, there. You could have five chargers, or you can spend, the same amount of money on one $5,000 charger, right? And so the taxpayers got ripped off with the government incentives, but that was from lobbying efforts. It was really too bad for the taxpayers, because we would have all seen 500% more charging stations out there if they would have actually allowed non-network chargers to be government funded, right? So that's sort of a sore spot, but ultimately, you have to adjust, right? So we do have network chargers that for level 2 and level 3, and we're trying to always go against the grain to do what's right for the people. But at the end of the day, going back to that Saskatchewan tax, I understand it's more political. It's more of a wedge issue than anything else there. It's really too bad. I understand that roads need maintained, but cars don't wreck roads. It's tractor trailers that wreck roads. So instead of a gas tax, you should actually just charge a consumer tax, or only charge semis. Hauling fuel around or hauling consumer goods around, because they're the ones that destroy roads. It's not cars. Cars have nothing to do with the destruction of the roads. Maintenance needs to be there for the trucks. So I will pull up this. I just put this on my LinkedIn today, or just before the call. But ultimately, the title is "Decarbonize or Die." World's biggest investor warns business chiefs globally, right? So at the end of the day, if we're going to do anything to slow the adoption of zero emission vehicles, we're idiots. And anybody that does that is an idiot, because if the world's largest investor is saying this is a problem, we need to decarbonize or die, then it doesn't leave any room for this type of political shenanigans. It's very short-sighted. It's very they should be embarrassed, and I hope they are in their kids' eyes, because it's just ridiculous. So that's my opinion. Now, politically correct opinion is, well, we have to pay for the roads and this sort of thing. But if these people are not destroying, if they're trying to help the environment and reduce insurance premiums across the board globally, which are exploding because of climate change issues, then they're helping to extend, the insurance, the lower insurance fees for the non-electrified or non-zero emission vehicles. But if you're going to penalize people to buy electric, then the gas vehicles are going to, have higher insurance rates, because we're going to have more climate change insurance premiums, right? And the disasters are happening all over the world, right? And that's it's a snowball effect with climate change too, right? So if it's just complete bullshit, to be honest. So $150, big deal. What's that about, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I try to be very politically correct with all politicians and all political parties, but they should be embarrassed, of themselves for that.
Well, that's in sort of that same vein. Petra's asking, Ontario elections are coming up in June. I realize you're not from Ontario anymore, Kent, but what push can citizens make to forward better EV policies all around? Well, first of all, we got to convince Doug Ford to stop talking about all Tesla drivers or buy cars that are $100,000.
Yeah, well, Ontario, again, politics is politics, and I hope I don't have to start a political party, but if I do, it's going to be pretty disruptive. But the whole world needs some common sense, right? And it's really too bad, but politicians get elected on their base. Now, federally, you get into politics a bit, under the Harper regime, the policy went through that no unions and no corporations can donate money to a political party. And the maximum any contribution could be was $1,200. That was one of the best policies ever put forth into politics, because that's why the US is such a mess, is because you can unions and corporations can skew common sense, and the same thing here with some provinces and some cities. The one thing that you need to push for is that no unions and no corporations can influence political parties by giving them money. And if everyone's the same, it doesn't matter if you're a zillionaire like Musk, or you're just trying to make ends meet. You can only donate a little bit of money to any political party, and that allows common sense to come into politics, and we don't have that because we have that program in. So if I don't know where it's at in Ontario right now, I know Saskatchewan can be bought. They can take money in from the political parties there, can take money from other provinces, from unions and corporations, from wherever, right?
Somebody's saying here, I'm not trying to call you out because I don't know the answer. They thought that was Chrétien to put that in place, not Harper.
No, 100% guaranteed it's Harper. Done. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 1,000% guarantee. It was under the Harper government that did that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I was very much involved in pushing that one through.
Another person asking about, changing the topic, about ice buildup on their wipers when they're driving in snowstorms. Nothing I can say for sure there. I mean, the best set of wipers you can put on the car. Some people, if they're going to do a lot of long distance driving and whatnot, will put that Rain X or whatever on the windshield to keep it clean. Doesn't it really affect the wipers too much? Somebody else also asked about keeping the cameras and whatnot clean. Not much you can do, but a lot of people will put one of those Teflon coatings or something like Rain X on there.
Well, that's interesting. I'm surprised they don't wash those off. They're not tied into the washer fluid. So I thought some cars would have that by now to wash off the cameras.
They do. Some cars do have that. Not Tesla, but I mean, some of them definitely have it on the rear, little tiny spray thing on the rear camera. But no perfect answer on the defrosting. I would just make sure it's set to defrost. Make sure you don't fog up your windows, and you've got it correctly on air conditioning where need be, and a good set of wipers.
Do they still have those wipers with the wraps on them?
I'm not sure about that, to tell you the truth.
The winter.
Someone's asking that. Cornell's saying the best wipers are the enclosed ones.
Yeah, right. They still have them.
Yeah,
they do. Okay. Yep.
I think we've sort of covered most of these questions here, Kent. A lot of them are sort of repetitive or asked in a different way as they came through. But I'm going to say, not in conclusion, because we're certainly here to continue if anybody has more questions, but anything that I wasn't able to cover, or whether it be about the club or about your car or something, please email me or and we will try to get the answers for you. There's 1,100 people in the club. It's a great resource to have everybody here and to have us connected with Tesla so we can find the answer out for you somehow. But it's all out there, whether it's through us or not. There's so many Facebook groups, social media posts, forums online. If you don't believe in social media, that's fine. Go to one of the forums, whether it be Reddit, Tesla Owners Online, like I said, Tesla Motors Club forum. You're going to find answers to almost anything you could ever imagine. And a lot of these forums have Canadian-specific areas, Tesla-specific areas, obviously, and that kind of thing. Oh yeah, Roscoe, I saw this. Roscoe is just saying that right now on Twitter, which is really interesting to see. Scotiabank has a whole post on what you need to know to buy an electric car, but it was fairly loaded with erroneous information. So at least they talked about it. So somebody should write into Scotiabank, or if you know anybody at Scotiabank, get them to correct that. Like it's quite often done out in the public domain, things aren't put in correctly.
I will.
Asking about.
I will jump in regards to Ontario. Yeah, it's sort of too bad they got rid of a lot of the rebates. It slowed down the rate of EV adoption. But I will give them kudos where kudos are deserved. But they've been attracting EV manufacturing there. So I'll give them that.
Yeah, for sure. And this person's asking if they buy a Sun Country charger, do they get a discount?
Yeah, you get to charge up for free because it allows us to stay in business more, and because I don't have any more Tesla stock to sell. But it allows us to just keep pushing free EV charging as much as we can, and we're the only network out there that pushes in the world that pushes EV charging, and ironically, we're also the first one to do it. So.
I mean, we're getting there. A lot of them still aren't. I mean, Cornell just posted or sent to me that Shell Canada is now installing chargers at the stations right across Canada, like Petro Canada. Who would have ever thought?
They're not free, but they're not free.
No, and they're not always the most reliable. But at least we're getting there. But Kent, I will say that I said this in the last time we had you on. Very admirable about what you've done. I really do think you should find somebody to ghostwrite for you or something. You could turn it into a book or a movie or something like that, because it's your story is unbelievable. And I know for a fact, even some comments I'm seeing, that many people weren't aware of it. It's very admirable. You certainly did help save the electric car, and really appreciate it. Keep it up. And I'm just looking here if there's anything else here.
Yeah, ironically, the film industry the Canadian Film Directors Guild reached out about a year ago, and they wanted to zero emission they wanted to green their industry, because the film industry is pretty brutal, lots of diesel generators and transport. So I'm actually helping the TV and film industry now globally. Like it's really spread to the top 8-10 studios. So we're gonna see carbon neutral films coming out soon.
Yeah, that's actually, believe it or not, I was in a few guys that approached me years ago. My car was in a movie shoot, and these guys stayed in touch with me, and some of the people here in Toronto were trying to get that going. And the challenge is getting them to realize that to do that, you've got to have, big giant battery units on the back of a truck, or you tow with a trailer and charge them up. And it's like anything, it's the upfront cost getting the everything off the ground. They're maybe thinking about it for the right reasons, but they balk at the price involved. They'd rather just get a diesel generator, crank the diesel fuel in, and away it goes. But I agree, it could make a huge impact. I envision, some of these big, huge movie studios downtown Toronto could have solar on the roof, battery storage locally, charge portable units when they go out on location. We've all seen those trains of trailers and trucks in downtown Toronto or whatever, shooting movies, and they're running 24/7. And keep us up to date on anything along those lines. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've taken a whole ecosystem. So I'm changing the way that, if it all works and they adopt it, but changing the whole way that the circus is designed and run, which is where all the vehicles are positioned. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But it's going to be fun. It's sort of ironic, right? Because a lot of the ones that were criticizing or the more supportive of the environmental issues and against pollution, a lot of them were from the TV and film industry, right? And yet it's more so the suppliers that supply them is a bit of the problem. They all want to do it, but they can't, because it's a very difficult ecosystem. So, but we will see zero emission films coming, and we'll see even better than that coming. So we'll see it soon.
Somebody's asking, they don't have their car yet. Can they plug in at low power during the day, and then during the overnight get the time of use automatically?
In Ontario. Mm-hmm.
Mike, you want to handle that one maybe?
Yeah, that's just a case of setting the scheduled timer and put in your tick the little box that says charge during off peak or low energy rates or whatever Tesla calls it. And then there's a little place you have to fill in where it says when your off peak rates end. And in Ontario, it's 7 a.m. So you put 7 a.m. in there, click the little button, and then when you charge, you can plug it in anytime and it'll schedule that charge for overnight during the off peak times such that it's finished before 7 a.m.
Okay, great. JP's asking, will a service center sell a charger with a Tesla handle instead of a J1772? JP, I'm not sure what you mean by that. The charger that you buy from Tesla is what's called an HPWC, and it has the Tesla proprietary charger on the end. You can get maybe he means Sun Country. Do you have, yeah, your Sun Country, they're all J1772, correct?
Yeah, they are. And that was because, again, I didn't want to leave anyone behind. So, going to level 3, it was a bit of an issue because we had so many standards. But I definitely see Tesla going to the J1772 plug in North America as a standard coming in the future.
Are they still giving J1772 adapters with all the cars today?
Yeah. Oh, I see. Good point.
Anybody answer that question? Yeah. So I don't think, I think, again, Kent, he did this a lot to help Tesla, but he didn't want to be proprietary and have it only for Tesla. So J1772 is the only universal adapter that works on every EV out there, to my knowledge. So
it is. Yeah. If you have an EV in North America, every car will charge on it, or they come with an adapter to charge on it,
Yeah.
So. But thanks for clarifying that, because it's always good to know if Tesla stopped doing that, or if they're now charging a fee for that. I honestly like the Tesla plug. It's really great, but it's not really a safe bet for any other automakers to go with that standard, because at any Tesla could sort of, if things change, they could put that automaker in a position. But the universal plug, that's why I think I would bet money on that Tesla will go to a universal plug in the future. And I mean, they don't have the destination charging program anymore, but towards the end there, when they were putting HPWCs in and they put, let's say, 10 chargers in, 8 would be Tesla and 2 would be J1772. So there is an HPWC looking chargers with a J1772 on the end. It wasn't that originally. Originally, it was all Tesla chargers, and then we got them to add the J. And that was because a lot of people were resistant to putting the Teslas in, because they wanted to, help other ones, or the Tesla chargers would take up their panel, and then there wouldn't be any left for any other cars. So, the idea was to provide a J to get more destination locations in.
Yeah, and I know they did that, I think, with all the chargers that are now at the provincial or national parks.
Yeah, we helped. I think inspire that. That was exactly our program, right? So I explained earlier that I say you guys need to do chargers. So that was the destination program. So we helped roll out the destination program internationally.
Wow.
to get it going a lot faster, because again, their survival depended on it, but so did the electric car.
And your chargers are in Quebec too, correct?
Yeah, so in Quebec, Quebec has some funny language laws. So we actually started a company there called EcoRoute Quebec. Same brand, same everything, but it's EcoRoute. It means green path, which is, if you look at our logo, it's a green path over a hill, and it's a really bright future. Even though you can't see what's over the hill, but you see the sun coming up. So the design of that logo is it's the world's fastest path to sustainability across the board. That's why we're in so many. We're going to bring out a splash page soon, so people can actually see what we've done. But we've been we're probably the deepest company in the EV sector. Plus outside the EV sector, the supply and the utilities and the system operators. And we've been dealing with everyone's issues pertaining to the electric car and what their concerns have been. It doesn't matter if they're businesses or sectors or industry or utility or automakers or whatever. But so we have some really crazy stuff coming out in 22. COVID's really delayed things, but going back to Quebec, They have it's a political hot potato in Quebec, having English branding on chargers and or on anything, right? So it changes with the wind in Quebec, and I think sometimes it's like $1,000 a day penalty if you have an English sign or something. Like it just changes like the wind, and so it was just better to do that. Number one. Number two, Sun Country Highway didn't really mean much in French. It was a little bit, Sun Country Highway, pretty basic, but when you translated it into French, it didn't really resonate. So that's why I created EcoRoute Quebec. And the idea was to electrify all of Quebec's highways, which we did before anybody else or everybody else put together. We had electrified virtually every highway, road, and freeway in Quebec. And the strategy there, because Ontario's a hab province too, and Quebec's been getting about $10 billion a year in equalization payments from the hab provinces. So annually for forever, it seemed. So the idea there was to electrify Quebec, allow them to, turn into one of the hottest EV sectors in the world. But if we could get all the transportation in Quebec to electric, we could power all of Quebec's vehicles and transportation with electric from Quebec. So it'd create more energy, more jobs, more industry, more economic drive. It would make Quebec a hub province for the first time, I think, in history. And then that would take pressure off the other provinces that are funding Quebec.
Roscoe, whenever people are using SCs, I don't know if they're talking about service center, supercharger, or Sun Country. No, Roscoe is asking about solar canopies over SC highway chargers.
Right. Yeah. I can't really get into too much there, but I can say that I'll tip my hand. We are about to launch. Well, I'll go back a year and a bit. The metro bus sector needs it's really polluting, and it's really not good. Yeah, I've never been cool with exhaust pipes blown into kids' faces or onto streets, right? Whether it's school bus or metro fleets, but the whole industry was a disaster. The procurement of the buses, some bought electric buses but didn't have the infrastructure, so they realized that you couldn't even use the buses. There was just municipalities are big. It's really difficult for everybody to talk. But then the bus makers, if they sell lots of parts with regular buses, maybe they aren't incentivized to build an electric bus, right? Or promote an electric bus. But and then the utilities are the one. Again, I've been advising them for a decade and trying to solve their problems for them. So we've got a lot of cool things coming out this year. But the utilities have issues with large scale facilities with, say, 500 buses at 500 kilowatts an hour each. So and the list goes on and on and on, why it was just sort of dog's breakfast. So we've actually created a program, a very disruptive program, which will zero emission bus fleets completely in 12 to 24 months, including the bus barn facilities, power generation, power storage, zero waste, zero emission, and 100% zero emission buses and facility, while we save taxpayers money. So month one, even if they don't spend any money on the whole facility, even if we turnkey it and bring in the investors to do it, we will go to 100% zero emission bus fleet in a city within potentially 12 months from permitting.
Were you alluding to solar there then and battery storage?
It's a lot more complex than that, but the idea is the cities don't really even have to spend any money. Taxpayers don't have to spend any money, but we'll take the whole fleet to zero emission, including the facilities, and we can lower property taxes month one compared to what they're paying today for the metro transit costs.
So you analyze this. You probably can do a lot more detail, but when will we learn more about that?
Well, soon. It didn't take long to develop it because I've been working on this stuff for 30 years. And that'll probably come out this year, what I've been working on for 30 years. But that's why I've had the roadmaps to solve these things pretty quickly, because they all need to be solved for my ultimate goal that I targeted 30 years ago. So that's why we really needed battery storage and electric cars and a bunch of other things. But yeah, so that's coming.
Goes so like Sun Country have solar at any of your locations?
Do we? Yeah. So, but like we're international, right? Like we were the first charger in a lot of countries and a lot of provinces and states and cities, and first one in Cuba. That was pretty cool. And Norway, we're the only corded chargers in Norway. All the other chargers, you carry your cord with you, but ours are the only ones that have a cord on them. It's a different charge than what we have today. So that's
what about solar though? Is there any solar that's powering these chargers?
Yeah, like there's a great winery in BC with a massive solar panel with a bunch of our chargers. Yeah. So, but we have a lot of interesting things coming soon, and those are not based upon really what's good for us. It's what's good for solving climate change and really consumers and businesses alike. So I would throw out a question. What hotel chain did your members think is the most EV friendly? You can't survey that quickly, right?
Well, do we still have that survey thing, or was that only in the webinar, Mike?
That's in the webinar, unfortunately. Yeah.
We'll just throw it in the chat, folks.
It'd be just a fun tidbit, but yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what comes out. I actually did do a survey, a pretty big international one, and it was pretty accurate. So it was pretty substantially favored to one brand. And that's really what we're doing. We just keep working with, we work with everybody, but the brands that listen to us the most,
Best Western, a couple of people have said. Two people said Best Western.
That would have been my guess, but what do I know?
Another person said DoubleTree, but that's primarily US, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So, but the idea is to get these people supporting the EV owners, and that's why we have a lot of we have chargers at virtually every single hotel brand, but the one hotel brand pretty much does whatever we recommend. We're their exclusive provider, and in a bunch of things, and that's including solar and battery storage and a whole bunch of other things that we haven't really triggered yet, but we've been wanting to bring all the contractors out there and really help move everybody forward to
what I would ask, and I know it's a big ask because you're a busy guy, but and I want to thank Cornell for staying in touch with you and getting you on this second time. But anything that when you're about to break it or you've broken it, the launching the bus charging or anything like that, let us know, because we're already getting people thrown in the chat here. They want to see you on here again. Anything that you can tell us to keep everybody in the loop, whether we actually get you on a session or put a little article in our newsletter. You've obviously got a pretty interested audience here. Just I'm going to throw this out. I don't know if you're aware of this, Kent, but Jeffrey Don, who's from Dalhousie, I think, or somewhere down in the East Coast, and works directly with Tesla now. The EV Society has them on their Zoom webinar in February. Tim Burrows has already sent me the info, so we'll be sending that out to everybody the next day or two. I didn't want to confuse issues with our meeting coming up, but he is going to be on the EV Society. That's a pretty big coup for them. The only thing I will say is he cannot talk at all about his work with Tesla.
Right.
He'll be able to talk about the future of batteries, the future of battery materials, the future of charging, all these things, but no one can ask him about what's the secrets that are going on at Tesla, or what's the next big thing, or he cannot discuss Tesla whatsoever. So
no, it's like I don't advise Tesla anymore, so I don't mind talking about it, but just because I don't need to. Like they're the most valuable auto company in the world, and they don't need a lot of help. I would say that I wish they would just open it right up completely and not be so hidden, because all of their secrets are actually hurting our ability to solve climate change globally. And I would really, I hope, the Tesla clubs, because you guys have been awesome globally, right? Like Tesla's starting to listen to the clubs now, which is great. And, it'd be really cool if they just open it up. It's sort of like, hey, it doesn't matter what the valuation of Tesla is in the future. If we don't have a future, then what's the whole point of it? We'll all look like idiots. So, until we solve climate change, I would actually get rid of patents, to be honest, until we solve the problem, like let's get there, right, completely. And then there's not this greenwashing type scenario, but it's really too bad that we just can't be open and tell everybody about everything. I can understand for startups, or you have to be a bit protective so that you don't get, cannibalized by the big boys. But Tesla's a big boy now, right? Like they, it's pretty amazing to see where they've went from, in a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say to you there? I lost it. I think that's about all I've got. It's all the questions we've got here. Again, I want to thank you very much, Kent. Keep us in the loop on your new stuff. Are you going to, will we see press releases and things like that on your website as these new things get launched?
Yeah. Well, the biggest issue is, so on the Bus Barn program, we're actually launching in a lot of countries. So our structures are certified in a lot of countries.
Somebody's asking about TTC.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we're already working on about almost 100 structures around the world quietly, and we haven't even sent out a brochure or put up a website yet. So
wow.
On it. So it's just been an organic thing behind the scenes, trying to figure out the best rollout, that sort of thing. But it has to happen fast, right? So, but to zero emission a whole city fleet and do it in, say, as little as 12 months from permitting, and then do it without taxpayer money and be able to lower property taxes month one from the launch of it, I think is going to be pretty cool and disruptive. So I'm looking forward to that one. And that's coming very, very soon.
Awesome. So people are asking, what about your answer for the best hotel charger system?
I don't know. I was just asking you guys.
Oh, well, you must have an idea which ones of where have you put more of the chargers?
Yeah, well, definitely Best Western has the most chargers, right? They've offered free charging at most of their locations for almost 10 years now. So I was just wondering what the majority of people in your area thought, because Toronto, you don't really need to leave Toronto. You don't really need to go. Everything's in Toronto, right? So you really don't need to travel that much. But traveling. Originally early on, like all the the ones that have been that had EVs 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, before the destination program, say, they would have found a ton of Best Westerns just because they grabbed it with both arms and they really embraced it, and that was really good. But again, we're in virtually we're definitely in every major hotel chain out there. It's just a matter of, I was just wondering what your members thought. So just
cool. One last question for you. Did you join the Tesla Owners Club Saskatchewan?
I think so. Well, I did. We helped set up a lot of clubs across Canada, right? And EV associations and stuff years ago. And we'd get a real keener and say, hey, what about this? Oh, you can do that? Yeah, you should do it. You're really good at it.
I know Tyler Kraus, they get a fledgling club there. They're growing, but you may just want to put them on your radar.
Yeah. I was actually at an event there. They had two events, one in Regina and Saskatoon, and I actually drove all the way. I drove through the night from Calgary just to get there. Wow. And I got there, and it was pretty cool because they said, "Do you want to speak?" And it's like, well, they said, "No, I don't speak." So I took the mic and just thanked everybody for coming and for everything that they were doing, and then I think Tyler said, put up your hand if you would not have an electric vehicle if it wasn't for Kent, right? So the majority put up their hand, right? Like throughout the whole audience there. So that was sort of cool. But yeah, it's really, I wish we could support every single EV association in the world. And we do, whenever we can, we push people to their local EV association, because that's the best place to get your information. It's not from the papers. It's not from the web. The EV owner groups and the Tesla Owners Club, they will try to protect you and get you the right information, and that will allow your experience to be way better. And that means you can express that experience to other people, and they can learn as well. And that's the fastest way to EV adoption, is really through the EV associations. So that's why I've really promoted people to start them.
Well, thanks for taking a couple of hours out of your day. I know it's sort of was the dinner hour when you started there. So thanks very much. We appreciate that. And everybody, I would just say that if you didn't get your question answered tonight, whether it be about Kent, Sun Country Highway, cold weather driving, winter driving, something to do with the club, suggestions, ideas, concerns, email us. We're here to help you. And I can say there's probably some people in the audience that we've really been able to help out if we're a service concern or delivery concern or charging concern or something like that. And our Facebook group is growing. I know not everybody's a big fan of Facebook, but it's the only thing we have really for a forum for people to chat and help each other out. So it's a private Facebook group only for our members. So I would encourage you to look at that. But that's about all I got. And I can put my screen share back on. Not that we really need to share it anymore, but appreciate that, Kent. Thanks very much again. Stay in touch. And did you want to share if anybody wants to contact you directly, are you willing to share your information?
Yeah, the best way to keep up with me is LinkedIn. So I pretty much accept all any LinkedIn profiles that are real. But the reason there is I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook at all. It's just I got other things I need to do. But with LinkedIn, it's just there's less wedge issues and criticism and all that other stuff, right? Where LinkedIn's pretty safe, I guess you could say, to post certain things. So if you want to know what we're working on, that's basically the best place to follow me is LinkedIn. That's really the only social media channel that I spend any time on. And I just need to stay focused on my projects. And that's why I'm not really doing anything on Twitter. I think I've done one thing or shared one thing in 3 years on Twitter, just because I need to stay focused on what I'm doing. But we have a lot of really, really neat things coming out. So it's going to be pretty exciting and a lot of Canadian technologies that will help change the world fairly quickly. So going back to you guys, everyone on here, thanks for joining. I really appreciate everything that you've been doing, and some of you just got new EVs, some have had them for a long time, but it's your siblings and kids should be proud, and will be down the road. I think they'll realize what you've been doing is very very important and has been critical. But those running the EV groups, it's a ton of time. It's a ton of sacrifice, and give your leaders some support as much as you can, because without them, the EV wouldn't be where it is today. So thank you guys again.
Great. Thanks again, Kent. Stay in touch. Good night, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast or the Zoom meeting, I guess you call it. So Alvin has raised his hand before we leave here. What are you asking, Alvin? Hang on here.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything that you provided for Winnipeg. Thank you again.
Oh, yeah, Alvin lives out west now. So.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's it's cold there, so you definitely don't want to be traveling too far without having a full battery there. So, actually, Gimli just put in some free EV charging there. Beautiful parking lot to park at, right on the water's edge, and some more communities are putting in more free EV charging to support you guys, right? So that's why we do it is to support the EV owners. And it doesn't do much for our market cap. Networking and having locked in networking fees forever does a much better job at your network or at your market cap. But ultimately, free EV charging, I think, is really what will keep things cooking. So yeah,
perfect.
We're happy to see a lot more coming into Manitoba soon.
Okay. Anyhow, Kent, thanks very much. Have a good night. So a long session here. We really appreciate it, and we'll see everybody soon. Stay tuned for our next meetings. Good night, everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.